Hey, welcome back. In this video, we will discuss about the scope in Python. So what exactly is the scope of a variable inside of the Python? Okay, a variable is only available from inside the region it is created. This is called scope. Okay, and then we have two different type of scopes for the variables. One of them is local scope and one of them is global scope. So what exactly is local scope? A variable created inside a function belongs to the local scope of that function and can only be used inside that function. So let's see that in action. Okay. So let's do something like def my function. Okay. And here I can declare a variable x equals to something like 500 and print x. Okay, this is good, right? And now what I can do, I can call my function. All right. So what do you think will happen? So let's run the program. As you can see, we are getting 500 here. It is expected. But now, what if I want to access this variable x outside of the function? Something like this. Okay. As you can see, already VS Code is giving us some error like, hey, could not find the name X here. And if I just save that and run the program, we are getting a name error. Name X is not defined. Okay. So we cannot access the variable which is defined inside of a function. So this is the local scope of a function. And this is a locally scoped variable. Okay. All right. So now, what if I have another function here inside of this function? So def, let's do my inner function. All right. And here I can print x. All right. And then what I can do, I can call my inner function. Okay. So now what do you think will happen? Okay. So here what I'll do, I will just add something like this. So let's do like, this is the local. Okay. So, and this is inner. Okay. All right. Now let's run the program. As you can see, this variable x is now available inside of this function as well, which is the inner function, right? And that is why we are not getting any sort of error. Okay. So this is how the local scope of a function works. Okay. And once again, this is something which we will discuss when we will discuss about the closures in Python. But currently right now, you just remember like, hey, if we have an outer function and we are declaring some sort of a variable, that particular variable will be available inside of any sort of inner functions. Okay. All right. So we have seen that. So we have seen the local scope and then we have seen the function inside of the function as well. Okay. The variable x is not available outside of the function, but it is available for any function inside of that function. Now, what exactly is the global scope? A variable created in the main body of the Python code is a global variable and belongs to the global scope. Global variables are available from within any scope, global and local. So what do I mean by that? So let's declare another variable. Okay, what I'll do, I'll just comment out this one currently right now. Okay, now let's discuss about the global scope. Okay, so let's declare another variable x equals to something like 500 once again, and def my function. Okay, and inside of that I can print x. All right, x. Okay, and I can call my function. Okay, Now if I run the program, as you can see, we are getting 500 here. So this x variable here, it is inside of the main body of the file, right? And that is why this variable x belongs to the global scope, and the global variables are accessible inside of the local scope, basically inside of the function. Or if I do something like print and do something like x, okay, that will be good as well. Okay, so the global variables accessible from the local scope and the global scope. Okay, all right. Now what if I declare another variable inside of my function? So x equals to 200. What do you think will happen? Okay, so now what I'll do, I will add some of the comments here. So here I will do something like inside function, and that is global. Okay, all right. Now if I run the program, as you can see, inside of the function, the value of x is now 200, and outside of the function, basically inside of the global scope, it is 500. Why is that? Because if I just go here, I have written down these notes. So if I just go here, so naming of the variables. So if you operate with the same variable name inside and outside of a function, Python will treat them as two separate variables. One available in the global scope, that is outside of the function, and one available inside of the local scope, that is inside of the function. Okay, so here as you can see, this variable, basically Python is saying like, hey, okay, this is a global variable, so this is a variable, and here we are using the same variable name, so Python treats these two variables differently. Okay, so this variable is a different variable than this one, and that is why inside of the function the value of x is 200, and outside the function, basically inside of the global scope, the value of x is 500. Okay, all right, so I will just comment out this one as well. So now let's discuss how we can create a global variable from a local scope. Okay, so if you need to create a global variable but stuck in the local scope, you can use the global keyword. Okay, so yes, this is exactly what it is. Okay, the global keyword makes the variable global. Also use the global keyword if you want to make a change to a global variable inside of a function. So what do I mean by that? Let's find out. So first of all, what we can do def my function. Now inside of that, I can do something like x equals to 300. Okay, and here I will do something like my function and call the function, and here I can print the x. Okay, but before doing that, what I'll do something like print and do x. Okay, so now as you can see, once again this is giving us an error, and if I run the program, we will get an error. All right, now we can do something like this. So we can use the global keyword, so global and x. Okay, and now what we are saying to Python, like, hey, this x variable is a global variable, create a global variable called x. Okay, now if I run the program, we are getting an error. Okay, so you might be thinking like, hey, it did not created the global variable, right? I cannot access the x from outside the function. But please remember, when this function runs, after that it creates the global variable. What do I mean by that? So when we are calling this function, after that it is getting to this line like, hey, global x, and then x equals to 300. So what we have to do basically, if we want to use the global variable which is created from a local scope, we have to use that particular variable after the function has been called. This is very, very important. So if I just run the program, now it is giving us 300. And now you might be wondering like, hey, we are still getting some errors. Yes, we are getting some errors by our IDE, but don't worry about that currently right now. So this is how we can create a global variable from a local scope. Now, do I recommend creating a global variable from a local scope? No, I do not recommend that. But in case if you do not have any sort of other options and you have to have access to this variable from outside the function to another function or something like that, you can use the global keyword for that. Also, one of the other things which we can do here, so if I just comment out this one, is that, so let's create a variable. So x equals to, let's do 500. Okay, so def my function. All right, and inside of that I can do something like, let's first of all print that. Okay, print x. All right, and my function. Okay, all right, so this is good, right? Run the program, we are getting 500 here. But in case if we want to modify the x, so let's do something like x equals to x plus 100. If I just do that, we are not getting any sort of errors inside of our IDE. But if I just run the program, we are getting an error. Okay, cannot access local variable x where it is not associated with a value. So what exactly happening here? So whenever we want to modify some global variable from a local scope, we have to declare this variable as global. So we have to say like, hey, Python, this x, you are modifying it right now, right? So you have to use the x which is inside of the global scope. So what we have to do, we have to do something like this. So global x. Okay. Now, if I run the program, we are getting 600. Okay. So we have to tell the Python like, hey, Python, whenever you are modifying this variable, I know you do not access to that, but don't worry. You just looked into the global scope and there will be the x variable. And now you use that particular variable to modify this variable. Okay. So what exactly is happening under the hood? All right. So this is how we can use the global keyword inside of the Python. Okay. So I will comment out this one once again. Then we have another keyword, okay, which is the non-local keyword. The non-local keyword is used to work with variables inside of nested functions. The non-local keyword makes the variable belong to the outer function. So what exactly do I mean by that? So let's do something like this. Okay, so let's go here. Let's define a function, my function. All right, inside of that, let's add a variable x equals to something like, let's do John. Okay, and then def my inner function. All right, and inside of that, let's declare x equals to, let's do something like hello, something like that. Okay, and we will call the my inner function here. Okay, and what we will do, we will just return x. Okay, so this is something which we have done so far, right? So we are having this variable x, inside of that we are having another function, and here what we are doing, we are just redeclaring this x variable here. And here what I can do, I can just print something like my function, because we are returning x from it, right? So what do you think should happen? So if I just run the program, we are getting John here. Okay, so in case if you want to modify the x variable here, so what you have to do, you have to tell the Python like, hey Python, you modify this particular variable here. Okay, so if I just do something like non-local and then x, so what exactly do I mean by that? We are saying to Python like, hey Python, you modify the x variable which is declared here. Okay, now if I run the program, we are getting hello. Okay, so our variable is now modified. So in case if you want to do something like this, okay, where you are declaring a variable inside of a locally scoped function basically, and inside of that you are having another inner function, and there you want to modify the variable, then you do not want to use the global keyword, you have to use the non-local keyword. What exactly the non-local keyword do? It will check for the outer function if there is that particular variable available. So here in our case, we are checking like, hey, non-local x. So check for the outer function if there is any sort of x variable there. Yes, it is there, right? So then you should modify this variable here. Okay. All right. Now, one of the other things which I want to point out here is that there is a rule in which the Python is looking up for the variable names inside of the scope. So Python follows the LEGB rule when looking up variable names and searches for them in this order. So first of all, it will look for the local variable, so inside the current function. Then it will look for the enclosing variable inside the enclosing functions, something like this. Okay. All right. Then the global variables at the top level of the module. Okay. And then it will look for the built-in variables in Python's built-in namespace. Okay. Awesome. I know this was a long video, but this is a really important video about the scopes in Python. Okay. So in this video, we have learned about the variable scopes in Python.